This is arguably the hypest chapter of One Piece in years, and that is saying something because we just got Kaido as a dragon. Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, chapter 925 of One Piece is out, so if you haven't checked out that chapter yet, I suggest that you do so because I will be spoiling you. But now that you have, let's begin. I gotta say guys, I was just a little bit prepared for the hypeness, which is chapter 925, because people who had read the spoilers told me beforehand. But everything that everybody was telling me, whether it was on point or not, it wasn't until I actually read the chapter that I really understood. Boy, this chapter. This is just one of those moments where I kind of just want to sit back and enjoy the moment. There's no need to talk, man. You just you sit down and you just infused with joy. But anyway guys, there is so much information in this chapter. I just gotta calm down. There is so much to unpack. Let's talk about it. Chapter starts off with Draco Mihawk talking to Perona. And all things considered, there isn't that much interesting that is said. The only thing that really sticks out to me as something that's worth discussing is the fact that Draco Mihawk knows what's going on at the Reverie, and by what he said, it sort of implies that what's going to happen shortly after the Reverie for sure, which was something we already knew, but we didn't know exactly how the world government would enforce it. They're gonna come and try to arrest Mihawk. Mihawk tells Perona that it's probably a good thing that she's leaving when she is, because it may no longer be safe on that island. To that, I say anybody who tries to capture Mihawk, good luck. Meanwhile, Perona is excited that Moria is in the news. He is not dead. If you guys remember the last time that we saw Moria, it was presumed that he died in Marineford. But of course, we already knew that that was something that Oda foreshadowed, that Moria had survived. The theory that the community consensus here was that Absalom showed up. He has the invisibility fruit. The things that he touches can also become invisible. So essentially he touched Moria, made him invisible, and then carried him off and saved his life. So yeah, Moria is confirmed alive. That is not crazy. And after this confirmation and Perona talking about him, we actually get to see him as he tries to rescue Absalom from the Blackbeard pirates. So first off guys, I want to say this. I and others have speculated for a very long time that it's possible that Moria makes an appearance in the Wano Kuni arc. Moria has a lot of history with Kaido. I think that it would make a lot of sense for him to be there. And with his reveal in the story now, something like that is even more possible than before. As you guys will also know, I also believe that Blackbeard will make an appearance in Wano, because that's just the kind of thing that Blackbeard would do. He'd take advantage of the moment to seek whatever kind of gains that he can. And at this point, really, two possibilities exist for Moria. Either he's going to die, I don't see why the Blackbeard pirates would spare him, or he's going to join the Blackbeard pirates. For Moria in particular, something that I think is interesting about his character is specifically his grudge against Kaido himself. If there is a way for Moria to become subservient to a Yonko, it's a promise of retribution against Kaido. Fine, I will join your crew, regardless of what you've done to me, if you give me a shot at Kaido. Then again, Moria is also a loyal guy, even though he doesn't always give off that impression. Losing his entire crew to Kaido pissed him off, and he is basically so sad about it that he's wanted an entire crew of dead people after that point so that he wouldn't have to deal with the loss anymore. So it's possible that having killed Absalom, the Blackbeard pirates are now just, Moria would rather die. And he clearly cared about the guy because he bothered to make a trip to Blackbeard's territory to confront Blackbeard himself in order to retrieve him, which is just something you don't do unless you care about that subordinate. So then maybe this is actually evidence against the idea that Moria shows up in Wano, because how would he? If he doesn't die, and he doesn't join the Blackbeard pirates, could they capture him to try and convert him over to their squad? Maybe that's possible. Maybe it's also a little redundant. Maybe they themselves make a trip to Wano and then take him along as some kind of prisoner. Either way, I'm intrigued. Oda set up Moria meeting with the Blackbeard pirates for a reason. Something will come of it. But yeah, this is just the start of it, guys, because the big reveal, the thing that I think most people want to talk about, is the reveal during the sequence of Blackbeard's bounty, as well as the double fruits of Katarina Devon, and I'm gonna butcher this because I always do, Shiridu. So let's just get it out of the way, guys. Blackbeard's bounty is 2,247,600,000, which is kind of a random number, and I think a little bit lower than a lot of people were expecting. But I just want to chime in here, guys. Blackbeard is the newest Yonko. He's the new kid on the block, so I expect him to have the lowest bounty of any Yonko. So if you're talking about Big Mom and Kaido, I think that they could easily be double, and that would be realistic. There's also the possibility that there's some kind of bounty cap, so they're only maybe like 3 billion, and that's a real number that makes sense. At this point in time, a lot of people have headcanons surrounding bounties, what they want, so I just think you should keep an open mind, but I do think that Blackbeard is the lowest bounty of any Yonko currently, aside from Luffy if you consider him to be a Yonko. Also, as a side note about Blackbeard, I absolutely love his new design. His beard, his aesthetic, he looks a lot bigger than before. Oda's not great at maintaining sort of size ratios, so that's the thing, but he just looks so much more intimidating. And also, he called Kaido a monster. That lets you know what we're dealing with. Moving back to his crew, we got to see Pizarro in this chapter, but not a lot of information was revealed about him, as well as the rest of the Blackbeard crew, aside from Katarina Devon and Shiryus. So they remain mysterious. But in the case of Swordmaster S, that's what we're going with now, he has the invisibility devil fruit now that was stolen from Absalom. Press F to pay respects. This just killed, I think, one of the more popular theories in the community. Everyone thought that he would get the diamond fruit after they killed Diamond Jozu, and that would make sense because a lot of people believe him to be in game one of Zoro's opponents, and him being composed made of diamond, then Zoro would have to cut him. But yeah, unless he's consuming 2 fruits, that is not the case, but the invisibility fruit is a very nice substitute. Instead, if he is Zoro's opponent, Zoro will have to cut somebody that he cannot see. And I'd wager, because he was able to sneak up on Moria, that there is some way to mitigate or reduce somebody's ability to observe him. And even still, I think that this poses a huge problem, because your observation has to be to a point to which that, I mean, it has to be on full blast all the time just to be able to know where he is, let alone actually fight him. I also like Oda's choice in powers because it doesn't give Shiryus any other sort of ability that matters to his combat. He's known as, the impression that we got is he's a sword fighter, and being an invisible man doesn't really change that at all, just adds another layer to it. It's different to say if he got like the magma fruit, right? You could, if he was a magma man, then is he a sword fighter, or is he's an OP devil fruit user? I think it's kind of the same reason why Dracula Mihawk does not possess a devil fruit, because Oda wants to emphasize him as a swordsman first and foremost. Another thing that I want to throw at you, random speculation, is I personally believe that at some point in time, Blackbeard is going to attempt to capture Robin. He will need Robin. Back in the Zou arc, we got foreshadowing from Nekomamushi that she will be in danger. My number one suspect is the Blackbeard pirates, and now you have an invisible Shiryus to potentially capture right in front of the Straw Hat's noses. This is just one of those things that just works for me. I think that it adds a layer for Robin to be captured first before the Blackbeard pirates actually have to defeat the Straw Hats straight up. As for Katarina Devon, she has the 9-tailed fox mythical zone devil fruit, which is, oh my lord, hype. We can see in this chapter that given her fruit, she has the ability now to transform into others. Her fruit straight up surpasses Mr. 2 Bon Clay. I'm sorry, Bon Clay, your fruit is now irrelevant. Again here, guys, I really like Oda's choice. Katarina Devon is known as the Crescent Moon Hunter. She gives off just her design in general that of a witch. And to have a fruit like this, which has a lot of just straight up magical properties. We're just going to call them magical, like they're witch-like properties, and I just think it works. And I just want you guys to know that there could be many other powers as well, because there's a lot of mythologies with the 9-tailed fox. Also, when it comes to Katarina being a female member of Blackbeard's crew, a lot of people speculate, myself included, that when it comes down to when the Straw Hats need to defeat the Blackbeard pirates, it's going to be straight up 1v1. All of Blackbeard's commanders versus the Straw Hats, and so Oda likes to pit females against females, so likely you'd have either Robin or Nami against Katarina Devon. In this case, I think Nami makes more sense, and you just have to wonder, like, at what point in time would Nami be able to compete with something like this? And it really makes you appreciate, if you look back at everything that Nami has done since the time skip, she is a lot stronger than she was pre-time skip. And it hypes me to know and to think of Nami potentially beating Katarina Devon. And I do think that we're going to have the clash of the witches. Some other things that I do want to point out to you guys is there's a theory for a long time, one that I personally supported, that maybe Kinemon had secretly but he was unaware, the mythical zone nine-tailed fox. That is obviously now debunked, so rest in peace theory. Also, I really like this and what Oda decided to do, because there's speculation that we currently have for the Wano arc about nine-tailed fox, not the devil fruit, rather the actual creatures that possibly or probably exist in the One Piece world, right? Kaido is a dragon, but at some point in time, and we've seen on Punk Hazard, dragons can actually exist. I think that there really are nine-tailed foxes. Specifically, I'm looking at you, Otsuru. And the first power that Oda decides to show us, to hint to us in the middle of the Wano arc, is the ability to shape shift, which is obviously vital for the theory about Otsuru. But yeah, guys, this was just two of Blackbeard's commanders and Blackbeard's bounty and an interaction with Moria, and the hype is endless, really. But we gotta move on. After this, we went back to Wano, and we can see Kinemon trying to recruit Shutenmaru, or Ashura Doji, into the squad, and he doesn't really seem to be that interested. To me, it seems pretty telegraphed how Ashura Doji is eventually going to be convinced, and I think that that person is going to be Luffy. I think that's the reason why Ashura Doji, Oda specifically had him observe Luffy's fight against Kaido. I think that regardless of anything else, that was an extremely manly thing for Luffy to do, and I think something that Doji would respect. But at the same time, I don't think that Luffy by himself can be the person to convince Doji, because I think that it just matters thematically for Wano to have a person who gives off the same kind of vibes as Oden, a future leader. So I'm also looking at Momonosuke and Kinemon to play a role as well, but I think that Luffy has to be integral and vital. Speaking of Doji's actual fight in this chapter against Inuarashi, this in my opinion is Oda directly power scaling him. So whatever it is that we thought that he could do, I think this is where he is at according to Oda, and that puts him at about half a commander in my opinion. Because if you guys remember, Inuarashi plus Nekomamushi just about equaled Jack, and I would say that maybe they were holding back a little bit. They were playing the long battle, so maybe their strategy was a bit different, but it's just plainly obvious, clear as day in my opinion, that Doji could not take any calamity in a one-on-one fight, which honestly is just something that makes sense. But he is still a top tier, and I do think that he is strong enough to do something of significance. Really just about the same as I feel about Inuarashi, Nekomamushi, and Kinemon. Also, as a side note, just a theory, speculation I want to throw out there, is I wonder if there's any real history between Inuarashi and Doji. Just because I know that they're fighting and maybe he's just mad that Doji won't join their cause, but it could also relate to their history in Wano 20 years ago. I wouldn't put it past Oda. We still do not know precisely how Inuarashi and Nekomamushi escaped Wano, and we also know that Doji has at least some regrets. Also, before we get to the second major hype of this chapter, I just want to remind you guys that Oda has reminded us of Otama's ability and the fact that she can turn her enemies into her allies. That is undoubtedly going to be critical to this arc, if that wasn't clear. But yeah, boys, if the Blackbeard hype was not enough on its own, Oda had to one-up that by also revealing in this chapter the other two calamities, Kaido's other calamities, Queen and King. So let's start off, guys. Confirmed theory. We've known this for really a long time because there was a note in Oda's office that we got to see in basically like a video that was made that was translated by somebody who watched it. But yeah, it's been confirmed for a long time that Kaido's calamities would be Jack, Queen, and King. Judging by the names and the rankings of the specific cards, Jack would be the lowest rank and King would be the highest rank. And so, oh my god, King and Queen have amazing designs. King in particular is hype level over 9,000. I think that we can gather a lot of information actually from the little that we got to see in this chapter. First off, it appears to me a lot of people were saying that Queen seems to be working on Kid's arm, and we didn't actually get to see Kid's arm in the last chapter, so that's possible. But to me, it honestly looks like that Queen himself or herself, who's likely to be an Okama of some kind, just looks that way to me, maybe from Kano country, the Chinese country of the One Piece world. It looks to me like his arm itself is mechanical. And he's actually playing with a gear in between his two hands, one of which is black and mechanical, the other which is normal. So yeah, guys, you spend a moment thinking about this and it becomes very clear who Queen's opponent is going to be in this arc. It has to be Sanji. First off, it appears to be an Okama. That's the impression that I get. First off, his name is Queen. Second off, he seems to be wearing makeup. It's questionable at best. And if you're talking about an Okama not being Sanji's opponent, then you're wrong. We also know that Sanji recently got a raid suit from Germa, which we know that he will use, and using that raid suit against somebody who has a mechanical arm, potentially part cyborg, or has abilities that relate to that in some way, just makes sense. It becomes something like a battle of technology. But at the same time, I think that it is very likely that Queen also has a devil fruit, specifically some kind of overpowered zone devil fruit, whether it be ancient or mythical. Those are my guesses, and from this chapter, I don't really see a lot of hints which suggest anything. But that is another angle to consider. The only thing that appears to me like it might be a clue is the tattoo, or whatever it is that goes over his bald head, and sort of like comes to a cross on his forehead. Maybe that's some kind of hint, and it'll become more prominent if he ever transforms. But yeah, let's talk about King. There's also things worth pointing out. First off, he looks awesome. Second of all, he seemed to be wearing an Impel Down Jailer jacket. I mean, we saw Shiryu in the same damn chapter, and he's wearing the same thing. So maybe this is some kind of history for how he ended up joining Kaido's crew. Maybe Kaido was captured one time, taken to Impel Down, and from there recruited him. It's specifically stated that King loves to torture. I'm sure that fits in perfectly in Impel Down, and maybe at some point in time he was assigned to try and torture Kaido. We also see that King has wings, which is another trait that is commonly found from people who work in Impel Down, like for instance Magellan, Hannibal, and others, so it works there. Now his wings are a little less demon-like, or bat-like, and more like a Rouge or the Skypians, but it might just be a stylistic thing. Or maybe he is a Skypian. But I gotta admit, guys, the thing that has me most curious about him is the fire behind his head. Now, I don't think that this is just a random fire, guys. I think that this is actually coming from him, and as a calamity, he is known as the Calamity of Wildfire, and it would just make sense for him to have fire-related abilities. Guys, and this makes double sense because I think that we have here Zoro's opponent in Wano. He has fire abilities. He has a katana. If you look at the katana, it honestly looks a lot like Zoro's sword that he received from Kuena. Zoro wants to learn how to cut fire. It just makes sense. So just like with Queen and Jack, I expect King to have some kind of zone fruit. And so he has wings. Maybe this is how he normally looks. Maybe this is a product of his devil fruit. Maybe he has some sort of bird fruit. And we're also sort of suspecting that he has fire-related abilities. So I'm looking at maybe some kind of fire bird, or in general, fire mythological creature. But I do have a couple guesses as to what I think that his devil fruit could be, or what it is that I want it to be. But honestly, I want to research it a little bit more and make it a topic of its own video. But yeah, guys, that is the unbelievable hype of Queen and King. Two other things to mention before we end this is it seems as though offerings from Curry matters to where they're going to go for their next trade. I don't know, man. Maybe they're going to go trade with brokers like some of the other underground people. That's the only thing that comes to my mind. Other than this, I just know that this is probably significant in some way, and I have no idea exactly what it means. As for Jack calling Queen and King his big bros, I do not think that that means that they're related. That's something that we often see. Aniki, it's just basically, you're my superiors. But yeah, guys, I need to sleep on this one. I need to just take a moment and just breathe in this chapter of One Piece. It was just on that next level. But yeah, that's what I gotta say. As always, I'm curious as to what you guys think, whether you noticed something from the chapter that I may have missed. Just share your thoughts. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you dislike the video. Make sure to subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.